Good afternoon. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 27 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses and their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Future-Proofing Your Business, Web 3.0, NFTs, and Blockchain, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. Please mark your calendars for the next webinar in our digital bootcamp series, Success Through E-Commerce, on June 15th at 1 p.m. We are recording today's presentation, and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted, but if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box, and we will address them at the end of the session. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Cameron Nelson, Chief Digital Advisor for the Central Virginia SBDC. Cameron has over 18 years of experience in technology and is a senior tech consultant in Silicon Valley, helping Fortune 500 companies improve their digital marketing and e-commerce. At the same time, he also founded several tech companies, including a software as a service website for tree preservation and a blockchain platform for nonprofits. Cameron is accomplished in language, culture, has an MBA and MA. He believes new technology products have the ability to help shape our world for the better. Please join me in welcoming Cameron Nelson.
Thanks for the introduction, and hello, everybody. Welcome to this session. I think this is a really interesting topic to be talking about to you, and I hope that you'll have some questions for me at the end. We will have some time for those, so please jot down any that you think of. I've been studying blockchain and cryptocurrency for 3 or 4 years now and been teaching courses on how businesses can apply it for at least 2 years. And I've seen a lot of changes happen in the landscape as far as the blockchain technologies, how far they've come, what businesses can use them for. And some of the things that we used to teach about are no longer valid, and there's a lot of new things. So I'm constantly incorporating the latest trends and technology that is applicable to small businesses when it comes to blockchain. And so let's jump right into it. There's 5 main topics that we're going to cover today, and those are: what is blockchain and Web 3.0, and what do those definitions mean? Secondly, and this is very important to all of you, is how can blockchain be used for your small businesses? What are those use cases? What are the potential benefits? And how can you go about setting those up? Our third section, we're going to talk about kind of what the future holds for this technology and what the benefit can be if you can use some aspects of blockchain now in your business as your business grows into the future. Fourth, we'll look at the variety of different industry applications where blockchain is being used today and give you some idea of the scope and the breadth of the technology and what it's capable of. And fifth, we're going to talk about safety and privacy concerns, everything from what are risks inherent to accepting cryptocurrency payments to risks with the blockchain. Keep in mind, though, we're not going to talk about things like investing in cryptocurrencies. That's not going to be covered in this presentation. So first, I want to start off with just asking the question is, what is blockchain? This is one of the main questions that people have, and it's good to know that blockchain is a technology that incorporates all of these different types of applications. So you see some of the words here: cryptocurrency, decentralization, digital, finance. And so when you talk about the blockchain, it contains elements of all these different things, all these different technologies, and all these different use cases. So there's some main use cases where businesses can get involved with this technology. And those are the ones we're going to focus on today, obviously. But just so you know, blockchain does encompass many, many use cases for many different types of industries and applications. And so another term that I want to cover because it's important to understand as we discuss further, is what is Web 3.0? This is another term that's been used within the last year or two, quite widespread in the news. And so it's good just to get an understanding that Web 1.0 was the first iteration of the internet. And I can remember this is what I grew up using. And this just included just basic web pages that were running on HTML. It had very basic e-commerce, and it supported the languages of Java and JavaScript. So it was, the first iteration. But Web 2.0 started in around 2006. And this is when social media launched, when user-generated content like your posts and your tweets started proliferating, mobile apps came on the scene. Also, you could, record and upload high-quality videos and imagery very quickly from phones. And internet access got much more high speed. So Web 3.0 is what blockchain has been shifting us into in the last 3 years or so. And it's internet based on the idea, if you look at the second term here, DApps, which stands for distributed apps. And it means that the internet is more distributed and decentralized, wherein, if you have a cryptocurrency, you control that directly with your wallet. You don't need a bank. So users monetize, store their own money. And also, if you're storing data on the Web 3.0 platforms with a decentral way, then you're storing and keeping your own data. And this also goes into what are called NFTs. This is a part of Web 3.0, which are unique digital tokens to represent something like an image or a video. Also, things like the metaverse and augmented reality and virtual reality became much more popular during Web 3.0. And so there's a lot of advancements and enhancements Web 3.0 brings. And so that's what we're talking about now. This is the phase of the internet we're in today. And it started, I would say, about 2 years ago. And it's certainly still being developed in a lot of ways. And blockchain is built on Web 3.0. And so I get asked a lot from business owners, what's the difference between Bitcoin and blockchain? And so I want to just break these down. Bitcoin is a certain cryptocurrency. It's just one cryptocurrency. Whereas blockchain's underlying function is as a ledger, which can record anything, a transfer of a Bitcoin from one person to another, or the purchase of a real estate property, or many use cases, but it's just a ledger that is a decentralized ledger. The aim of Bitcoin is to simplify and increase the speed of transactions without governments or without banks, whereas the aim of blockchain is to provide a low-cost and safe environment for many, many types of transactions. Again, it could be you're selling an NFT of your digital artwork. So that could be used on the blockchain. You could store the legal record of a property on the blockchain and show the ownership. So these are all use cases of the blockchain. Bitcoin is limited just to trading as a currency. So you can buy it, you can sell it, you can spend it. Whereas blockchain can transfer anything we just talked about, property rights, stocks, NFTs, and Bitcoin. And so the scope of Bitcoin is limited just to being a currency, but the blockchain is open to developers. And that's why we've seen a ton of projects and different use cases pop up on the blockchain trying to help different industries and different business types. And therefore, you also see a lot of big companies, we're going to talk about which ones those are later, that are using the blockchain successfully and also accepting the cryptocurrencies as payments for their services. So I want to talk about what defines the blockchain, talk about some of the more technical aspects of it, just briefly, so everybody knows kind of what these basics are. So blockchain was proposed as a research project in 1991, and its first real application was Bitcoin. So blockchain is a system of recording information in a way that it makes it difficult or impossible to change it or hack it. And it also doesn't require a third-party intermediary. So for example, if you were to, transfer money online to a friend using a bank, that bank is the intermediary, and they're verifying, okay, the money's out of person A's account and it's put in person B's account. But the blockchain does not need the bank to be the intermediary. It can do that on its own. And we'll talk about how it does that on its own here. And also, blockchain applications like Bitcoin, they never exist in a physical form. So they only exist on the blockchain, which is immutable, which just means if it's been recorded into the blockchain, it's there forever. So you can think of something like the Rosetta Stone, or somebody chipping letters into a stone tablet. What was chipped there once will never be changed. So it's kind of a record of history that is not changed. And blockchain works in a similar way. So the main features of blockchain to be aware of, if you're going to consider using it for your business, are it can't be corrupted. And the reason for this is every node, and when I say node, it just means a computer. So being a node on the blockchain, you can do it yourself on your home computer. There's specialized computers set up around the world that are very big nodes. And so every node on the network of a blockchain has a copy of the ledger. And the ledger, again, is just the record of entry of who's transferred what. And every node checks the validity of each transfer request. So in a simple way, you can think of it like the computers on the network are all validating the transfers at the same time. And once there's a consensus, which means over 50% agree, then the transaction is recorded. And this all happens with cryptography in the background. So it's a system of transfer that can't be corrupted very easily. And the second feature is that it's decentralized. And so because there is no government or bank overseeing Bitcoin or any other thing built on the blockchain, there's not a single entity that's in charge of it. And so this can have its benefits, one of which is that decisions are made by the majority of the people who use the blockchain, which would be those people who own the nodes. Decisions such as updating the code, for example. And also because there's not one singular entity, it can't be taken down in the same way that a bank website could be taken offline. And we've all seen high-profile hacks of corporations or even banks, which expose user data or maybe allow hackers to steal funds. And so the bank is the point of weakness there, whereas being a decentralized technology, blockchain doesn't have that same security risk. And that is also the third point here. It's harder to cheat the blockchain system. At least that's how it's designed to be used. And the next point is the distributed ledger, sometimes called DLT, which is distributed ledger technology. And the ledger is just, you can think of it as a data file that you can publicly see. And it's on the blockchain network. It's maintained by all the nodes. So if you're going to be a node on the Bitcoin blockchain, you're going to have a copy of the ledger along with every other node. So there's a lot of copies of the ledger. And they all agree. And that's how transactions can be verified without needing a bank. This provides that transparency and traceability to all transactions because that ledger is always public. Next feature is consensus. And so the consensus algorithm, which is built on cryptography, enables the network, whether it's Bitcoin or another blockchain network, to safely and securely record data, which could be a transfer of money. Changes entered into the ledger need the approval of the nodes. And again, I mentioned over 50% would signal approval. So the nodes are all cracking away, trying to validate transactions. And as soon as 51% have that, and this usually takes a matter of minutes, then the entry is entered into the Bitcoin blockchain forever. It's immutable, and that transfer has taken place. And the last feature is about time and cost. As I just mentioned, it's very fast. I mean, not many traditional banking systems will transfer money, in a digital or virtual format within just a few minutes. It usually takes longer. So blockchain is very, very fast. And also, if you're transferring money through a wire transfer or through the SWIFT international banking network, if you've done it before, it's not cheap. There's always a fee. And there is a very small fee for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency transfers, which is usually a very small percentage of what's in the traditional banking system. So I know this was technically heavy, but I think it's a good idea just to give that overview. I'm sure you'll have questions, and I'm happy to answer those as we get towards the end of the presentation in the Q&A section. So now let's talk about let's look at an example Bitcoin transaction. So in the first step on the left, a new transaction is entered. The transaction is then transmitted to the network of peer-to-peer computers. Now, these are the nodes. And you see them here, they're all working together. And this network of computers solves the cryptography equation that confirms the transaction. And the next step is, once it's confirmed to be legitimate, meaning over 50% of those nodes have said, okay, we've cracked the cryptography for this transaction, and we are entering it into the ledger. They're grouped together into a block. And then these blocks, once there's enough, are put into the blockchain. And then the transaction is complete in step number 6. So hopefully that helps a little bit understand the process. And this whole process takes sometimes seconds and sometimes a few minutes. So it's a very quick process, which is part of the technology. Now, what I'm going to do now is open up a website. And over on the left-hand column, we're seeing the live updates. You can see them updating there every couple seconds. And these are the live updates of Bitcoin's transactions on the blockchain. So this is that public record I talked about. It says the time, the date, the amount, the origination address or the person, and the destination address or the person. And so this is going 24/7. This has been, the Bitcoin blockchain was started almost a decade ago. And so these records go back historically that long. Some of the interesting things you can see here are the amounts of the Bitcoin, which is usually a decimal. So it's like 0.0026 Bitcoin, and then the corresponding value in US dollars at the exchange rate today. And so you can see many of the transactions are in the hundreds. The second one is 35,000, and that you see them for millions, tens of millions, and et cetera. And so this is the live and visible aspect of the blockchain happening in real time right here. If I click on one of these transactions, oh, not that one. Let's see. Let's click on. Here we go. So I just picked one of them at random, and a few of the things that are interesting that it says. It talks about the fee. Now, remember how I said there is a small fee for transferring Bitcoin? You can see the fee was $3.88. So that varies a little bit day to day, but it's pretty cheap. You can also see here the from address. So you can think of this address, it's called a hashtag. You can think of this hashtag as a unique person, but it's anonymous because we don't know who that person is. But that person transferred $233 worth of Bitcoin to 2 different addresses, and that's how it came out. So that was this transaction. And there's other interesting things you can look at in Bitcoin transactions. And keep in mind that every cryptocurrency that you might have heard of, it has the same type of feature where you can view the real-time blockchain transactions. And this is on purpose because this is part of the public distributed ledger that we talked about. And this is how the community knows that the transactions are actually legitimate. So let's hop back over here to the presentation. Now what I'm going to talk about are the 4 ways that your small business can utilize blockchain. And we're going to talk about the benefits of these different methods, some use cases, some examples. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll have an idea if you're interested in exploring any of these options and if you think they might be right for your business. So the first one is you can integrate cryptocurrencies as a cheaper form of payment. And you can accept cryptocurrencies as a method of payment in your business from your customers. And the second thing we're going to talk about is you can leverage what are called smart contracts. And these are a self-verifying and self-enforcing digital contract. It's stored on a blockchain, and it's recorded such that it cannot be changed. So some use cases for these are like commercial leases, agreement with a vendor, employee contracts. And we'll talk about more in a moment, but these are called the smart contracts. The third way a business can utilize the blockchain is through raising capital. So over the last 5 years, we've seen a flurry of capital raises happening, essentially raising money for your business or your product or service without going to a bank or a lender or a private equity firm or a crowdfunding site like Kickstarter. This is an alternate way. And we'll talk about what these blockchain-based capital offerings are. And fourth, we're going to talk about the benefits of how using blockchain can bring new customers to your business. Potential customers who already have cryptocurrency are looking for ways to spend it and outlets for it. And so by accepting Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, it can give you an advantage in getting these new customers. And we're going to talk about how some of the very largest companies already have been accepting cryptocurrencies for this very reason. So the first aspect is that cryptocurrency is cheaper than traditional payment methods. So two of the most common payment methods for selling online for e-commerce are Square and PayPal. You can see here Square charges 2.6% plus 10 cents per transaction, and PayPal charges 2.9% and 30 cents per transaction. So that's in contrast to the cost of accepting payments on the blockchain, which could be Bitcoin primarily, but you can accept a variety of others. There's a couple ways you can go about using and accepting cryptocurrencies, both if you sell online on your website, but also if you sell in person with a point of sale system. One of them is BitPay. This offers a hosted checkout page on your website and a payment button, and everything essentially gives you the whole shopping cart. It integrates with QuickBooks and Shopify, and it charges a 1% transaction fee. And Coinbase, which is mainly a cryptocurrency exchange, about a year ago released their own checkout pages, which will enable you to add payment buttons for somebody to pay in cryptocurrency. And they handle it all. They integrate with Shopify and WooCommerce, as well as other services you might be using. And last time I looked, they were charging a 0% transaction fee. So you can see that but if you were just to accept the majority of your sales in a cryptocurrency, you're going to be paying less because you're getting off of these traditional payment methods. Now, of course, the big credit card processors, MasterCard and Visa, they're nervous about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies taking away their revenue. And so they have partnered in various ways with businesses to help you accept a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency, but they still want to make a little bit of money off of it. So I'm not going to go into these value propositions in detail, but the links are here. And also this presentation will be sent out to you after, so you don't need to write these down. But when you get the presentation, you can just simply click on them. The short of the story is that both MasterCard and Visa have worked in a way that you can keep using them. You can use them for your payment processor. You can now also, they'll accept cryptocurrency for your business on your behalf. They will charge you fees for that because, again, they want to make money off of cryptocurrency and not lose it all to places like BitPay and Coinbase. So these are some of the cost advantages that you can realize if you accept some of your sales in cryptocurrency. And there are some very large companies that have accepted cryptocurrencies, primarily Bitcoin, but some of these support others as well, including Microsoft, Home Depot, Whole Foods, Overstock, and then some nonprofits like Save the Children and Wikipedia accept cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin for donations. So no matter if you're a for-profit business, if you're a very large one, they've accepted it. Nonprofits accept it, and of course, small businesses as well. I don't think there's really statistics on how many small businesses accept Bitcoin, but I know I think in the state of Virginia, it's in the tens of thousands. So there are quite a few already on board, but that leaves, I think, the vast majority who are not yet accepting any form of cryptocurrency payment. So in addition to cost savings, you have the ability to write a smart contract. Now, when I say write a smart contract, what you'll really end up doing is working with a developer who will code your contract onto the blockchain to your specifications. You can find these developers both on freelance websites like Fiverr or Upwork, as well as many local development firms in and around Virginia will have sometimes somebody who can write you a smart contract for the blockchain. So what are some use cases for smart contracts? You remove the need for a third party, like an administrator or an evaluator. So what this means is that when you want to execute your smart contract, you just run the code on the blockchain, and you're going to set your predefined rules. So essentially, what are the terms? And when the rules are met, the agreement is completed and automatically enforced. So, for example, you could use it at some of the benefits down at the bottom, reduce the cost of negotiation, enforcement, and evaluation of a contract you have. It provides a high level of transparency and security, and you can have some cost and time savings because you minimize a third-party involvement. Now, keep in mind that smart contracts, they really work best with a digital asset or something happening on the internet, because that can be checked and automatically verified. And then if you're paying somebody or receiving payment, that can also happen automatically with a cryptocurrency, all on the blockchain. But some companies have also used smart contracts with physical goods. So maybe you receive a crate of product in your warehouse, you scan a barcode saying, okay, the crate has arrived. And that once you scan the barcode, it executes that smart contract, and you have some Bitcoin payment waiting in an escrow account, and that's automatically sent to your supplier. So that's one example of how a smart contract works with physical goods. But yeah, there's many opportunities here for simplifying workflows and processes. And so talking about the legality of smart contracts, just having a contract or a self-executing contract on the blockchain doesn't make it a legally binding contract in and of itself. But if you work with a lawyer to draft it, then states recognize smart contracts as legally binding. So kind of like with any business contract, if you get good legal help, whether or not it's a smart contract or a normal old-fashioned contract, they will be legally binding in the court of law. The third aspect of the blockchain that can be a real benefit to businesses are what's called the blockchain-based capital offerings, or how to raise money with the blockchain. And there's several different ways that this has been done in the last few years. Now, the first method is through ICOs, or initial coin offerings. And they were the first way that early blockchain companies and early cryptocurrencies raised money. And they were, I'd say, popular at the start of the digital asset boom, which was a period of about 5 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And unlike traditional fundraising, which usually involves selling part of your company to raise money or part of your startup, ICO sells a digital asset, it's called a token. And it's not an equity investment in the company at all. It's just a token that people can trade or maybe use in the future of your company. And for that token, they give you money, and you give them tokens, and then the money you can use to invest in your business. Security token offerings are different than the ICOs because what they offer is the purchase of a security, and this is defined by the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission. So during an STO, companies offer investors equity in the form of digital tokens. So it's a slightly different type of capital raise. And the last one is an initial exchange offering. And these have been the most popular within the last 2 or 3 years because unlike the other two, initial exchange offerings partner with a digital exchange. So we talked about Coinbase a few slides ago. Coinbase is the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the United States, and there's many around the world. And so by partnering with a large exchange, companies have gotten exposure, and they rely on the exchanges to act as kind of a counterpart and manage the issuance of their tokens. So in this way, it's kind of getting away from a decentralized free-for-all Wild West of ICOs into a more centralized place, kind of reminiscent of an initial public offering where you go through a large bank to help you with your IPO. And that's kind of what initial exchange offerings are doing. So different ways of raising funds. If you're considering, creating a startup or raising money for your business in the future, you can consider one of these methods as a possible viable option. And the fourth benefit of this kind of technology for your business is to bring you new customers. A survey conducted of over 35,000 cryptocurrency holders showed how many of them spend their money on purchases, and of that, how big is the average purchase. So you can see that the largest group, 32%, spent between $1,000 and $10,000 per purchase spending cryptocurrency. And the second largest group is $100 to $1,000. And when you start looking at the larger or the smaller amounts being spent, that's a smaller proportion of cryptocurrency holders. Also in the survey, the people expressed a willingness to spend their digital assets, whereas only a few, about 14%, just wanted to hold on to them for investment purposes. And so the takeaway here is, and the question asked was, what would encourage you digital currency users to spend it more? And the answer was, if more places accepted cryptocurrency, then we would be able to spend it more. So this survey, this study, and others like it, I think are a clear indication from the community that there are people, lots of people, who are interested in having outlets to spend their cryptocurrency. I mean, it is called a currency. And so this is an opportunity that a lot of small businesses have. And by partnering with Coinbase or BitPay or enabling cryptocurrency payments, you can find that you have a new group of customers who are able to spend their cryptocurrency with your business. So I want to talk about another aspect of the blockchain that is new. It's about 2 years ago this came out, and this is another application built on the blockchain. This is called non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. And most of you probably heard about NFTs. What they are, there's just a unique digital token, a digital piece of code. And each one has a signature that makes it impossible for it to be exchanged for another one. So each is unique. And so what they do is they represent some unique thing you own online, like an image or a piece of artwork. NFTs are typically on the Ethereum blockchain, which is the biggest competitor to the Bitcoin blockchain. But other blockchains support NFTs as well. And when you create an NFT, you mint it. That's what the term is called, minting an NFT. And digital collectibles are what the main thing is for. So things like graphic art, animated images, like GIFs, videos like sports highlights, event tickets, digital music sales, and avatars or video game items. There have been hundreds of millions of dollars of NFTs bought and sold in these areas and other areas as well. So an NFT is an interesting way for a small business to get involved in the blockchain. If you are selling something that's digital, like if you're an artist, this is probably a no-brainer that you would at least explore selling it with an NFT. But you might also consider what your business has that might be applicable to sell with an NFT, because it's a popular way to sell collectibles and digital items online. So one of the largest e-commerce platforms in the world is Shopify. And Shopify, a couple of years ago, decided that they were going to help people create NFTs. And so this is pretty cool because Shopify is a big international e-commerce giant, and they saw the value in helping their sellers create NFTs on their site. So by going to the link here, shopify.com/NFT, it explains how it works. But I encourage you to at least take this step if you're interested in learning about NFTs. This is a very easy way that anybody can get started selling an NFT. Now, of course, Shopify, for helping you kind of guide you through it, is going to charge a fee and take a cut of your profits. And there are other ways of creating NFTs where you can do it more directly and not pay so much. But this is the easiest way that I've seen. So I encourage you, if you think NFTs might have some potential for your business, to at least start with this link and then see if you can build on it from there and maybe create it on Shopify. So what I want to talk about next is what's the future for blockchain look like. A little bit of history. Blockchain got started in the 90s. And back then, there was a lot of legal and technological challenges that had to be overcome to get the blockchain to where it is today and being used on a wide scale. And we see the use on a wide scale starting in around 2017 with major companies like IBM, Visa, and Delta starting to use elements of the blockchain for like their finances, operations, and logistics. And from 2017 onwards to today, more and more people are acquiring Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies and looking for ways to spend it. And you start to see small businesses adopting it around 2018 and startups using initial coin offerings for capital raises. And I think also around this year, a lot of future-looking businesses started building services on the blockchain and accepting payment in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So whether or not your business was starting to use blockchain in 2018 or not, these are some lessons that can be taken away of how you can be using it today. And so what does the future hold for blockchain? In 2021 and certainly in 2022, a lot of governments of major countries started doing surveys and studies to see how it can be issued in their country to either supplement or replace their national currency. And as we saw, as I mentioned, from Visa and MasterCard, they are integrating blockchain payment technologies because if they don't, they risk being displaced by some of the newcomers like Coinbase or BitPay. And also, I think in the future, larger and small businesses who have just failed to adopt to this technology could potentially lose sales out to blockchain-powered businesses because those are able to be run more efficiently with less costs, sometimes faster transactions, and there's a lot of benefits. So those are some of the kind of major milestones of blockchain and kind of where I think it's headed into the future, and a big reason why you should probably be considering it for your business. So blockchain use cases span a wide variety of industries. So these are some of the major industries that have been using an element or two of blockchain successfully. So no matter what industry your business is in, it's probably listed here, or it's kind of tangential to one listed here. But I think that it just goes to show many businesses can and have been benefiting from seeing improvements that blockchain is kind of bringing about in like operations, finance, customer service and care, and a lot of different areas. So one of the biggest questions I get asked is blockchain secure, and what are those privacy and safety concerns look like? So I would say blockchain is pretty secure, but there are risks with it, like with any technology. And I think that being aware of the major risks is a good practice for everybody to have if you're considering accepting cryptocurrency payments or using any other element of the blockchain. It is not 100% secure, and I think that every technology in the last couple of decades has been found to be similarly not 100% secure. So it's not really different in that respect. The first risk or security vulnerability that you've probably heard about in the news is called a 51% attack. And this is because if you have over 50% of the nodes on the blockchain validating a transaction, you can kind of game the system. You can reverse a transaction, and you can cause what's called double spending by gaining this majority control of the nodes. The hash rate is a term that just means some of the nodes, let's say you have a computer that's old and your neighbor has a computer that's new, their computer being faster and newer is going to be more efficient and be a better node. So it's going to have a higher hash rate. So just another term there. Hash rate just means a more powerful type of computer. And so, yes, if you gain 51% of the hash rate of the nodes, then it's possible to do this. And the last study that was really done on the loss to 51% attacks was back in 2018. And it was estimated about 20 million was lost due to this issue of kind of double spending. It's more of a risk with smaller cryptocurrencies that have fewer nodes than it is with something like Bitcoin or Ethereum, which are massive and have so many nodes that most experts agree that it's impossible for one player or one entity to gain this control and be able to do this. And the second security vulnerability is social engineering. And this is when somebody would, like a hacker would obtain your private keys or your login information. And so a private key is essentially like a password you generate to access your cryptocurrency. So like with any password, if you were to give it to somebody, then they could log in as you and transfer your money away. So that's still possible with Bitcoin. Also, if you use an exchange like Coinbase to buy and sell a cryptocurrency and you were to give that username and password out, then somebody could log in as you. So, most ways this happens is a malicious actor would imitate someone you trust and send you an email or a message or social media, and they would try to get some of this information from you. So, of course, like with your banking information, never share any of this stuff with anybody, essentially. And the next risk is third-party vendors. And so we talked about BitPay as a vendor to help you integrate cryptocurrency payments. There are a lot of cryptocurrency and blockchain companies helping businesses integrate it or build a smart contract. So the risk is, if your vendor that you're using doesn't have good security measures, if their systems are hacked and they have some of your data on their system, then it can also be stolen and your data can be compromised. And essentially that could lead to the loss of your funds. So, it's can happen in any industry. You can have, some entity you trust with your information hacked, and then it's vulnerable and at risk. So just try to use well-established companies for anything related to cryptocurrency and blockchain, those that have really good reviews and obviously no headlines of being hacked. That's just good policy. And the fourth is poorly tested code. And so because blockchain is relatively new and it's really exploded in use in the last few years, there's a lot of companies and people rushing their products out to be the first to capitalize on making money off this. So this often leads to poorly tested code. And there can be insufficient testing and there could be security vulnerabilities. And this kind of leads back to point number 3, where these third-party vendors are rushing to compete with each other and to be the first one out with this product or service to entice more business owners like yourself to want to use it. So as long as you're aware that these are the 4 main security risks, it's not too dissimilar from using other online programs and platforms. And if you take, some just basic and sufficient precautions, I don't think you'll have any other problems with using a cryptocurrency or the blockchain with your business. And that's it for the formal slides and the formal presentation. I look forward to taking your questions now. I'll get through as many as I can in the time we have. And if you don't have time to stick around or you don't have any questions, then appreciate you coming. And I hope you learned a couple of things that can be useful with integrating blockchain into your business. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. We do have a few questions that have popped in, starting with this one is: the blockchain implies there is a single chain. Is that reality, or are there blockchains specific to other use cases like stock and or real property?
That's a great question. There are many blockchains. So when you talk about Bitcoin has the Bitcoin blockchain. And another one I mentioned is Ethereum, that has a separate blockchain for Ethereum. There are definitely thousands of different blockchains. Most cryptocurrencies have developed their own blockchain. And, there's various slight differences between the blockchains. Some might be slightly faster because their cryptography algorithm is easier for the computers of the nodes to analyze and crack. So each one has slightly different pros and cons. But yeah, to answer your question, each major cryptocurrency has its own blockchain, as well as other applications built for users and businesses have created their own blockchain. So there's many hundreds and thousands of blockchains.
Okay, next question. What kind of protections protect against a mass targeting of nodes linked on the blockchain to corrupt, take them offline? I'll read all of it and then let me know if you want me to go back.
Yeah.
Or is it simply the assumption that it would be too costly or time consuming for someone to try to affect so many systems at once?
Yeah, the last point is the generally held consensus, is that it's too it would be too costly. So something like Bitcoin has thousands of nodes and even entire warehouses filled with computers just running the Bitcoin ledger, and getting paid to do that. So for somebody to actually control over 50% of all these computers is generally thought to be impossible. It's not to say it's theoretically impossible, it's just practically impossible. So I think that is the strongest security measure that blockchains have, is that they're distributed, and it runs on consensus. It's not to say that in the future there might not be another security risk around that. Some people have stipulated that with quantum computing, with the advantages of being able to calculate large numbers very, very quickly, like 1,000,000 times faster than a typical computer nowadays, that a quantum computer could overtake an entire blockchain and basically take control of it. That has not been proven yet, but maybe in the next 5 years, we'll see some quantum computer try that perhaps. But the good thing is the Bitcoin blockchain and all the blockchains, they're not, the code is not set in stone. So as developers and see security vulnerabilities, they update the cryptocurrency algorithm and the Bitcoin code essentially. And this happens based on a group of developers. And again, the developers get to vote on updating the code based on their the power of their nodes in the global network. So those who control more nodes get more voting power. And so they have updated the blockchain every couple of years, especially the Ethereum blockchain has had some very public updates to help it be faster, to help it use less energy, and to help it be less at risk to future security issues. So that's a great question, and there's a lot of details we could probably talk about there, but I think that just gives you a good kind of brief overview of the answer to that question.
Thank you. It is said, like that specificity, that the relatively small number of cryptocurrency exchanges essentially breaks down blockchain decentralization. Maybe not monopolistic, but oligarchic. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Well, that's a great comment. I do. So, the premise of Bitcoin originally was that you could trade it or buy a product with it and send it directly to the person. Like you want to buy a bicycle, send it directly to the person, they give you the bicycle. It never goes through a bank, never goes through a government. Essentially nobody knows about it, it's all anonymous, but yet the value of Bitcoin is valid and it's transferred. So it's very decentralized. Nowadays, more and more Bitcoin is not being stored on an individual's cryptocurrency wallet, which is just simply a program you could have on your computer or your phone, which is a way you could just store your cryptocurrency on your device and nobody would know about it. Less and less people are doing that, and more people are just storing it on exchanges like Coinbase. And so, yeah, the exchanges are centralizing a great amount of the world's cryptocurrency holdings for convenience. But yes, that does centralize it. That does pose risks if Coinbase was hacked. As has happened, they have suspended withdrawals, they have suspended purchases. Even Robinhood, the very large and popular app, has suspended cryptocurrency withdrawals and stuff occasionally because of hacks or things they don't tell you why. And this kind of breaks the promise of a decentralized currency. So if you store a cryptocurrency on an exchange, you're at the mercy of the exchange, ultimately. Just like if you stored your US dollars in a bank, you're at the mercy of the bank for actually being available when you need to access it. But if you store your Bitcoin on your own wallet, your own cryptocurrency wallet on your computer, then you are able to access it whenever you want, assuming you have an internet connection, of course. The only way to actually use any kind of cryptocurrency or anything on the blockchain is with a stable internet connection. So that could be a risk as well. But I take your comment, and I agree with it there. I think it's a very a smart thing to be aware of. Thanks.
Okay, next question. How do you know which crypto is legitimate? What about carrot bars?
So I haven't heard of carrot bars.
Let me spell it in case I'm saying
Oh.
it wrong. Karatbars.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means. But so how do you know a cryptocurrency is legitimate? Um, that's a really good question. I mean, so there have been a lot of cases where somebody or some group has made a cryptocurrency just to kind of hype it up, and then they sold their amount of cryptocurrency and they made some money, and then the whole thing collapsed. So that's probably what you're referring to. Is it like a scam like that? It's really hard to say. If it's something new that has just been around a few months and is being hyped up a lot, I would definitely be very leery of it. And this is one reason why Visa or MasterCard, these big companies, when they say we'll help you accept cryptocurrency payments, they only accept the largest: Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe something like Dogecoin. There might be 5 or 10. They will never accept any of these very small, very new cryptocurrencies because of that risk. So if a cryptocurrency has been around 5 or 10 years, the community basically agrees that this was not a scam in any way. This was actually a legitimate project and legitimate currency. So I think that's the best way you can be safe, is to look at the top 10 cryptocurrencies, probably by size. You can just Google that. And then see which ones, Visa and MasterCard will support by clicking on those links in the slide deck, because they have done a lot of research and vetted these very carefully and vetted the teams behind them. So if they're sure they're not a scam, it's probably safe to assume that it won't, negatively affect your business.
Are there legal risks with raising capital on the blockchain? When does the SEC get mad?
Yeah. It's a great question. I'll just start by saying I'm not a legal expert. I've done a lot of research and followed this for a long time. Some of the companies that did ICOs 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 4 to 5 years ago, they raised millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and there were no laws. The SEC had no laws or regulation around this at all. So they got all this money and they're very, very happy. Some of those companies that did ICOs, the founders then just disappeared with all the money, and the company was a scam. And so, yes, the SEC has gotten more involved. And famously, a couple of the big ICOs, the SEC has fined those individuals behind them, made them pay back the money. I think there might be a jail time handed out as financial fraud. So when the ICOs happened, it wasn't really illegal, but it was shady. And then the SEC got involved years later because, the government's slow. So it took them a while to catch up. But right now, certain types of cryptocurrency raises it's still very much a gray area, but it's something that would probably be of a concern to most businesses. So your best bet is to talk to a legal expert. There's a couple of law firms in the US that actually really work with cryptocurrency firms a lot. One is called Cooley, Cooley. They have a big DC presence, and they work with a lot of startups to help them actually raise money on the blockchain. That would be your best source of up-to-date information about the legality of it. So I can only really speak from historical trends and what's happened in the past. But there are still companies raising money on the blockchain. It's just that it is a bit more complicated now, and the organizations like the SEC are paying a lot more attention to it. And every month it seems there's new regulations and laws globally about cryptocurrency. The EU just passed a huge law about a week ago, and what it said was that if you run a cryptocurrency exchange in Europe and you are hacked into, and the funds of your clients are stolen out of hacks, which has happened many times, the exchange is hacked and the funds are stolen. This new law in the European Union says those cryptocurrency exchanges must pay back the lost money. Before that, the cryptocurrency exchange basically said, "Oh, sorry, we were hacked and your money is gone. Sorry about that. We'll do better next time." That's happened dozens of times in the last few years. So unfortunately, that's people were left with just absolutely losing their money and being mad at the exchange, but the exchange was not legally bound to do anything about it. But now in Europe, they are. So this is probably a trend we'll start seeing more and more as laws get put in place to safeguard people's assets. Of course, everybody likes that. It's going to keep putting more and more regulation on cryptocurrency, probably until it resembles more the traditional banking system. Because if you think about it, there's so many rules about anti-money laundering and other things with traditional banks, which add a lot of complexity to banks, add a lot of cost to banks, a lot of overhead to banks. But it safeguards people, right? And so the regulations are coming to cryptocurrency, which will make them slower and more expensive and more like traditional money. But it's just inevitable because as people complain, the lawmakers catch up and they pass the laws. So like I said, Europe has just done this big thing. The US is sure to follow. So, but a lot of people see this as progress. A lot of developers making applications on the blockchain see lawmakers getting involved as good progress because they want to make it really legitimate and they don't want scams to be able to happen. And the only way to get scammers out of the blockchain and cryptocurrency space is with laws and regulations, unfortunately, because people, seeing an opportunity, take advantage of it. And that's happened in the last few years. So I know that's probably a long answer to your question, but I think it's a really interesting topic as the legal landscape evolves and how the community responds, both the developers of the applications and the small business owners like yourself, as you're contemplating using it.
And we have one last question here. Is there a site that shows a variety of examples of the use of blockchain for to envision one's own potential use and participation?
Mm-hmm. I tried to kind of instill some of that here where I talk about those 4 main use cases. And I'll just go back a few slides just so they're back up on the screen. So from my research and working with small businesses, these are kind of the 4 main areas where you can get involved. There's other kind of applications and use cases, but I don't really feel like there's a good site that talks about it. Because most sites are selling their one thing that they want a business to buy to use the blockchain. So there's not much of an impartial audience here or a provider of information. If you would like some more information, I suggest you could look at Wikipedia, which is pretty good and unbiased because it's really community moderated. If you look up some of these terms on Wikipedia, then you'll find much more information about them there. I think that there's so much information out there about using this aspect of the blockchain or that aspect of the blockchain that it can be overwhelming sometimes. So starting with these 4 points and then continuing to do research, again, I think Wikipedia is a pretty good place to start. It's going to be your best bet. And then, of course, talking with me or somebody else at the SBDC who's involved in this space and works with businesses to help them implement it, getting more kind of personalized or one-on-one advice could be your next step.
Do we have any more questions while we have Cameron's attention? Okay, I don't see anything else dropping in. So Cameron, if you have anything to add at this point, I'll let you add and then I'll wrap us up.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for your great comments and questions. Of course, this is a rapidly evolving technology and space. I think it's good for everybody to at least be aware of the basics, which I tried to show you today. And as you think about integrating it into your own business, just be aware there's some security risks. There's some legal questions, right? We talked about the landscape, how it's changing. But there's also the opportunities that we covered, getting new customers, new form of payment. Maybe you want to build a smart contract because that really simplifies your business processes. So weigh the pros and the cons, keep exploring it and be curious and get in touch with the SBDC, if you would like some more personalized advice.
We did have one more question pop in. Before that question, Pamela said to thank you, Cameron. And then the next question, would you please describe the most common way for a business to accept Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, I think the simplest way is if you look here on the right side, BitPay and Coinbase. These are links, by the way, that'll jump you right to their website. I just clicked on the Coinbase one here to show you. It's very, very simple. So they're going to make it very easy for anybody selling online to sign up. And so, they have a button to sign up. It'll walk you through doing it. Depending on how your website was built, you might have a very simple time, or you might need to put some actual code in the website to get it to work. It depends what platform you're using and all of that. But yeah, I would just start here. Again, these two links to BitPay and Coinbase are just here in the logos. You'll get this presentation so you can click on those and explore those more. But these are the two of the easiest ways I've seen to start accepting cryptocurrency payments, including Bitcoin and others.
Thanks, Cameron. Okay, I think that is it. Give a moment, see if anything else pops in, but since we have a little more time. This was a lot of in-depth information. It's really good.
Great.
Okay, I don't see any more questions dropping in, so I'll go ahead and wrap us up. I would like to thank everyone for attending today, and thank you, Cameron. As Cameron has noted, you will receive an email with a link to the recording and the slides. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. This webinar and other SBDC resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. And we do hope to see you at our next session.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye-bye. You too.
Bye-bye.